In Kupiansk, Kharkiv region, the Ukrainian armed forces continue both defensive operations and search and strike actions aimed at locating Russian invaders who managed to infiltrate through Ukrainian defensive lines. Ukrainian forces are defending their positions and hunting down sabotage groups in the northeastern city of Kupiansk, despite Moscow's statements that its troops are fully in control of it. The scale of lies from the Russian leadership about the situation in Kupiansk is astonishing. The truth is that in the days following their claims, fewer than 40 Russian radio communication subscribers were detected in the city. On the approaches to Kupiansk, our units are holding designated defensive lines and increasing fire pressure on the enemy to block their supply routes. Commander-in-Chief of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, Oleksandr Syrsky, said, Russian forces tried to break into Kupiansk and fully secure it to achieve the Kremlin's political objective. Unexpectedly for Russians, the Ukrainians are now the ones pushing to slice the Russian grouping in half and encircle them in the city instead. Brutal urban fighting in Kupiansk is going on day and night, from street to street, as the Russians are storming the city. Heavy bombardments light up the night as Russians try desperately to dislodge Ukrainian defenders. Euromaidan press media outlet says. Sergei Kuzovlev, commander of the Western troop grouping, recently informed Putin that Russian forces had completed the liberation of Kupiansk after months of intense fighting. However, in reality, this is merely the extent of their infiltration tactics, as their actual area of control is much narrower and more unstable, as only small Russian infantry pockets are operating in the city. This indicates that their consolidated territorial gains amount to roughly 30% of the town, with the area west of the Oskil River remaining a large grey zone due to continuous engagements between Russian infiltrators and Ukrainian defenders. Russian disadvantages in Kupiansk are twofold. Firstly, logistics are difficult to maintain because supplies need to be transported over the Oskil River, while Ukrainian drones are constantly surveying the crossings, Euromaidan press says. Secondly, after Russia established a bridgehead on the right bank of the river, they advanced too narrowly into Kupiansk, with only small infiltration groups and too few reserves, making their gains unstable. As a result, Russian forces have exhausted their forward momentum and, over the past 2 months, have managed only to consolidate their hold on a small number of newly captured streets. In order to mitigate the risk of Kupiansk being fully seized and Ukrainian forces east of the Oskil River becoming isolated, the Ukrainian command has established the Joint Forces Group under the leadership of Major General Mikhailo Drapati. In the ranks of this new corps, Ukraine has its most combat-ready and motivated fighters, whose task is to clear the city. Despite Russian announcements, most of the city remains in the grey zone, as Russians are unable to bring in a sufficient number of forces and consolidate their gains. Euromaidan Press reports. Ukraine will not halt its counter-offensive operations because the strategic value of Kupiansk is great, and the loss of the city would pose a threat to the defenders east of the river. Russia seized Kupiansk in the first weeks of the 2022 invasion, but Ukrainian troops recaptured it later that year.
The death toll from flooding in southern Thailand has reached at least 145, officials said Friday, as receding waters started to reveal devastating damage across the region. According to Associated Press, the Department of Disaster Prevention and Mitigation said Friday over 1.2 million households and 3.6 million people have been affected by floods triggered by heavy rains in 12 southern provinces. Thai PBS showed video of waterlogged buildings in Satun province, where roads and homes were destroyed by the floods. The receding waters were allowing some locals back to their homes, although flooding remained in some areas. People returned to their flooded homes to inspect damage with furniture and belongings strewn across the floors.
Đây, nhìn cái giá thì đúng không? Cái sàn xúc vào à?
Đi nữa. Đi con kìa. Kìa được cưng.
Đây, nhìn cái giá thì đúng không? Cái sàn xúc vào à?